Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Let's Program with Scientier. And today we are continuing work on the timeline program. Specifically, I want to add some additional data gathering to this. So let's see here. What do I want to do? I want to start by drinking some water while I'm thinking. That's what I want to do. Okay. So there's a couple of issues that I was running into last time, and I do want to fix some of them. But I also want to collect a piece of information, which I'm going to make a timeline date, call it last date. Actually, I don't need to do that. I'm just going to set it to null for now. So this is going to be useful for a couple of things. For one thing, I want to calculate a default PPT that puts the entire timeline on the default screen, the default size. So it might initially put things really on top of each other, but yeah. So what I'm going to do is find my processing. Let's see here. I want to put a gigantic comment box right here for control functionality. And the reason for this should become imminently identifiable. The reason why I want to add this is because, frankly, I can't find this with the giant size of that node. So I'm just going to add a gigantic comment to be able to kind of separate things so I can find stuff. It's really important to use comments to kind of identify things. I'm going to make a region here called controls. This is just where I'm putting things for manipulating the screen. So I want to do that because that kind of makes things a bit simpler. So events root, I collect the timeline. So then if events root dot next is equal to null, let's see, I'm going to, last date is null. Okay, so that does not equal null. Okay, so actually, okay, I'm just kind of thinking out loud. So if this doesn't have a next, then that means that our timeline is the maximal height. But I want to make a timeline event node has more e's in it. Root equal events root. And then this is just kind of a, I mean, it is what it is, right? While root dot, okay, so root does not equal null. Actually, okay, because what I want to just do here is go if events root does not equal null, so I don't have to worry about it. It's possible you can call this without there being any events, in which case it shouldn't explode. And while root dot next does not equal null, root equals root dot next. So all I'm doing with this is find the last node. And then what I want to do right here is last date equals root.when. So I'm doing this because this will allow me to kind of do some calculation over here, because this this whole process, this render timeline thing, what I want to do is I want to come through here and I want to calculate out what dates are at various positions and put them to the left side of the main timeline. I'm not going to worry about it on child timelines for the very simple reason that I have far less precise information on them. I could do it. I could add something for it right here, and maybe that would be worth doing. So I might consider that. Actually, now that I'm almost talking myself into it right now, but yeah. Anyway, it's helpful to know what your length of your timeline thing is. So yeah. Anyway, actually, what I can do is I can add that functionality into here to capture that information. Okay, I'm just kind of restructuring mentally how I'm going to approach this this whole process. So excuse me while I don't need last date anymore. And the reason for that will become clear soon. I do want this though. And events root.next. Actually, you know what? This is fine. Okay. So what I kind of want to do with this is think through. Okay, so I'm going to need to do some calculations on a piece of paper because what I'm going to need to calculate out, I'm just going to kind of describe it as I'm thinking through it here, is I have a simple algebraic equation, right? So it's position equals time times points per time. And what I want to find is how do I get a position so that way the last time is on the screen. So I want a position that, and this is basically, it's going to be time times point per time plus root dot y. And so what I want is I want when position equals client, sorry if I'm not sure how well my microphone is picking up because I have to look down at the piece of paper. Client size dot height minus 10 because I want a little bit of wiggle room at the bottom. So I'm just going to use a constant of 10 there. So I can then set these against each other and get time times ept plus root dot y equals client size dot height. I really should be abbreviating these, but I'm not. And I want to set things equal to ppt, so I'm going to start abbreviating things now. Time times ept equals client size height minus 10 minus root y, and then just get the time divided by, wow, I misspelled time horribly. Time is not spelled 10, like the digit 10. Okay, so what I have for a formula here, nobody should say that algebra does not help programmers because it does. So I want root dot ppt equal client size dot height minus 10 minus root dot y Okay. All divided by this root dot when. Now, there's a couple of important things here. This should be raw value. The first is I'm going to just cast some of these things into decimals. I'm going to cast that into a decimal, and this into a decimal, just to make sure it's being appropriately decimally. So if I've done my calculating correctly, then what should happen is that sort of this, the last position should be basically at the bottom of the screen. So this is obviously, if win is 0, going to cause problems. So I should add a check and go if root.when .raw value does not equal 0, then do this. Because otherwise we'd have a divide by 0 error, and nobody likes divide by 0 errors. Okay. So that should get some automatic scaling in, which is something that I really wanted. Delicious water. That will kind of make it so that way stuff should automatically be like properly fitted to the screen. Okay, now I wanted to get stuff on the left side. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to come up here, this X, and I'm going to bump it up a little bit, just to make some room for some times. So actually something else that I can do, now that I'm thinking about it, is I can also come down here and go root.x equals 10 plus root.when.raw value.toString. This would be, g.measure string that comma font dot width plus root dot spacer. Cast this to an int right here. And this should be root.x, not lowercase root. So what I'm doing right here is calculating specifically how far out I need it to give me an appropriate amount of space for the time. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and go into here, and I'm going to just add myself a date spacer, and I'm going to make it a bit smaller. And I'm going to use date spacer instead of regular spacer for this, because I think that makes sense. So what that will do is that will give me enough room for the last date, which should be the longest or the biggest number. So I don't need to go through and like calculate all of them. Technically, there will be some numbers that are like different sizes, but this should be like this 10 should give me enough wiggle room that it's not a huge deal. And, you know, I can always just kind of reposition things manually with my handy dandy panning control. So what I want to do is with this, I want to make this timeline event node, and I want it to return a timeline event node. So if this is null, then this will return null, obviously. But what I want to do right here is, because this goes to next, so I actually want this to, so I need to do two things. So the first is this. The next one is I'm actually going to add another thing up here. Int date pixels, pixel spacing. I'm going to set this to like 25. Again, these are things that I could potentially add controls to allow the user to manipulate, but this is going to be kind of what visually looks good is a large part of what I'm going to do. So I'm going to actually go this while kind of continues, and then this just ends, right? So what I can actually do is I can go here instead of having this, because it's not really relevant. Like that just exits me out of the function naturally. But if I go here and go, actually, maybe I don't want to quite do that. Well, let's just, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a return null to the end. And then I'm going to replace this right here with, I shouldn't ever get to that return null, but I'm going to have it there for safety. And then what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to go if renderman.next is equal to null, return renderman. So what I'm going to add now, and this is where keeping the root actually, no, this is, yeah, because it's coming off of renderman right here. So what I'm going to add now is I'm going to add a function. I'm going to call it void render dates. And I'm going to go timeline event node. Actually, no. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go int x int top, and then int bottom, I think is how I'm going to do this. So what I need for this then is timeline event node last equals that. So render dates, I need root.x, root.y, and then last.y. And this right here is the tricky one. So timeline event node subline last equals that. And then render dates, this x is going to be renderman.x plus, actually, so what I'm going to actually go ahead and do is I'm going to come up here to this gigantic goofball, and I'm going to add a public int x child or subline x, and give it a get, and a public int subline y, and add a get. So right now this is just going to return y. It's the same thing for like where it draws this to. So this is this right here is subline x. So I'm going to be able to modify this if I want to modify where the subline originates from to better allow for multiple things being kind of chased together and just other stuff. So this is going to be renderman.subline x, renderman.subline y, and then the bottom is going to be subline last.y. Okay, and then what this is going to do is this is going to go for int I equals 0, I is less than, actually let's call this y instead of I, because that'll be more accurate. Y is less than equal to bottom, y plus equals root dot date pixel spacing. Okay. just get some of our stuff there going good. It turns out like formatting all this rendering stuff is kind of complicated, but I'm really happy because I'm actually finding out a way of like rendering this that doesn't not work, which is very pleasing to me because it had decidedly been one of those points of concern, shall we say. So what I want to do here is I need to add one more thing. I need the graphics G, or I won't have the ability to render. And this is e.graphics. Okay, just format everything. Scroll down, back down here. Okay, so draw a line. X. Oh yeah, pens dot black. X dot. Just X top. X minus root dot date spacer. And then top plus Y. Top plus Y. Okay, so that draws us our line. So that will be our date spacer. And then I need int date width equals G dot measure string. Okay, so actually what I need right now is I need int date. Equals 0. I'm going to, well, the date obviously kind of starts at 0, but this is going to need to be a formula. Date dot toString, comma font dot width, and let's pass that to an integer because that's what we're dealing with. Okay, so I've gotten some thought here in terms of all I need to do is draw a line, or draw string. This one, a drawstring to tighten up your pants. And this is date dot toString. I can't not do this. String date string equals date dot toString. I can't, like, it's not horribly inefficient, but it's still inefficient. And so I just can't bear kind of doing that twice. Brushes dot black. And then I want x minus root dot date spacer minus date width. Actually, the sigh there was I just realized I needed to collect more information. So I'm just gonna go size f. Date size equals this measurement. Date size dot width. I'll just. Do I want to cast that to int? No, I don't need to cast that to int. And then this is going to be top plus y minus date size dot height divided by 2. Okay. Now all I need to do is calculate the date, which is important. So this is going to be based off of y. And it's going to be y divided by root dot pixels per time. And this is just making sure if I times a time, those cancel. So if I divide, I'm dividing by time per pixels. or multiplying by times per pixels. So that should take pixels and turn it into time. So I think this should work. I just want to cast this into an int afterwards. Okay. So let's see if this explodes on build. No, it does not. And let's make ourselves, let's just add 2 events, one at 15 and the other at 500. And then, whoop, I hit complete wrong button. Okay, this is now exploded, and I don't know why. So let's go to our why is this exploding thing. Okay, so we're in the middle of drawing. So let's look at our call stack. Where are we? Okay, so this is... Are we just like perpetually in here? This shouldn't be hard. Step out. Okay. So if renderman.child does not equal null, if renderman next, renderman next is equal to null. Wait, what is renderman? Okay, so we come in here, we draw renderman. Oh, I never set it to yeah, okay, I see what's wrong. Okay. So else renderman equals renderman.next. Infinite loops, lols. Good to figure out what's going on with it. Okay, so 500 and 15, just to be contrarian. Let's look at our timeline. Okay, so you can see that 500 is indeed at the very bottom of the screen. And right here is our unnamed event at 15, and we have dates going down. As I adjust this, you'll notice that the date thing kind of adjusts a little bit as well. Also, sometimes you'll notice that the date goes below. Oh, that's not going far enough, so I'll need to fix that. Those aren't perfectly lined up, which is probably some amount of rounding error. And that's obviously a little squirrely. Oh, fascinating. Okay, so this is some sort of problem. As you see what's going on is that is adjusting based on pan. Which is obviously horribly inaccurate. Right. It's because this bottom is based on the top position, which makes sense. Okay, so what I need to do here is instead of bottom, I need to get int date count equals bottom minus top. In fact, I almost don't need bottom, I need the date instead of bottom. So I'm going to call this date instead, because I'm not actually doing anything else with that. I'm just using it for how far to count. So I need to go up to this right here instead of being subline last, that, whatever. This needs to be win dot raw value. Now, this is going to run into a problem, I believe, on sublines. No, it's not, because this is done relative. Where's the other one? Right here. This needs to be last.when. Okay, let's see if that fixes my... Well, raw value. There we go. Let's see if this fixes the problems I'm running into. And I can see that I'm almost out of time, but I will make sure that my date rendering is working correctly. Oh, now that's not working. Oh, I am what? My PPT is screwed. Sorry, I'm like having to massively scroll to fix my PPT. Okay, let's go in here. Timeline overview. Okay. The last date is 15. Why is that 15? I'm very confused. I'm very, very confused. So we're coming off of here. We don't need that breakpoint anymore. Next is null. And when is a raw value of 15? Did I? Oh. My sorting is screwy. Why is my sorting screwy? My sorting always been screwy? No, it hasn't been always screwy. Okay, let's just... Sometimes... So if I make this one 500, I make this one 15, that doesn't screw with my... No, that's doing okay, but that's not going far enough. 15 still doesn't align properly, but at least now it's not adjusting how many of those to do based on that. Last date is 500. That's good. It was supposed to be there's still something screwy. Like right here. That's because I'm counting pixels. Okay, so I'm not sure about the one thing that was like wrong. So I'm gonna give a quick test to that to see if I can figure out what it is. This one, if I make this one 500 and then this one 15. Yeah, okay, that's where it screws up. Why? I'm gonna need to figure out. That's consistent. That's a reproducible bug though. So next time, because I'm running out of time, I'm going to leave you on a cliffhanger right here. I'm going to need to figure out what's going on with those two particular bugs that I just ran into, and I'm going to need to test this on separate timelines once I got, or split timelines once I got this fixed. So until next time, take care everybody, and note that it tends to be the polishing steps that take the longest. Farewell.